Ryan's hands were shaking as he adjusted his collar for the third time. The mirror in the restroom of the Daily Grind coffee shop reflected a 32-year-old man who looked like he was about to face a firing squad. 4 years. It had been 4 years since he'd sat across from a woman with romantic intentions. 4 years since Jessica had packed her bags one random morning and simply vanished, leaving only a note on the kitchen table and a 2-year-old daughter who cried for her mother for months. He took a deep breath. Mike and Tom, his buddies from the IT department, had pushed the blind date so hard that Ryan finally caved. He needed to start living again, they insisted. Little Sophia, now 6, deserved to see her dad happy again. And maybe, just maybe, this woman from accounting would be exactly what he needed. He didn't even know her name. Mike had only said she was quiet, reliable, and had also been single for a long time. Ryan felt a sharp pang of hope mixed with sheer terror. What would he say? How should he act? Did he even remember how to talk to a woman without mentioning cartoons or kids' birthday parties? He left the restroom and scanned the cafe. It was Saturday afternoon, and the place was moderately busy. Young couples, groups of friends, a few lone wolves on laptops. He chose a table near the window, as instructed. Mike had said she would be wearing a blue top. His fingers drummed nervously on the wooden tabletop. In the opposite corner of the cafe, partially hidden behind a decorative pillar and some potted plants, Mike and Tom adjusted their phones. The cameras were perfectly positioned, ready to capture every second of the humiliation they imagined was about to unfold. The idea had sprung up 3 weeks ago, during a happy hour fueled by cheap beer and gratuitous malice. Megan, the woman from accounting, was a constant target of cruel comments in the hallways, not because she was incompetent or unpleasant, but simply because she didn't fit the aesthetic standards these guys deemed acceptable. She was overweight, wore thick-rimmed glasses, dressed conservatively, and rarely smiled. To Mike and Tom, she was the perfect ingredient for an elaborate prank. They would convince Ryan, the shy single dad desperate for company, to meet Megan. They would secretly film her reaction when she realized she was being ridiculed, and then they'd show the video to the entire office. It would be, they thought, absolutely hilarious. Ryan ordered a coffee and watched the door. Every time someone walked in, his heart sped up. He checked his watch. 5 minutes to 3. She should arrive any minute. When the clock struck 3 on the dot, the cafe door opened and Megan walked in. She wore a light blue top, dark jeans, and the same glasses she wore at the office. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She hesitated at the entrance, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on Ryan, who gave a discreet nod. Megan's heart pounded. She knew Ryan by sight. She sometimes crossed paths with him in the hallways or the elevator. He had always seemed like a kind person, always offering a polite smile when greeting people. When Mike had approached her the week before, saying a colleague was interested in getting to know her better, she could barely believe it. After so many years of whispered jokes and disdainful looks, the idea that someone genuinely wanted to take her out felt like a small miracle. She started walking toward Ryan's table, nervously adjusting her purse strap on her shoulder. That's when her peripheral vision caught something that made her blood run cold. In the corner of the cafe, partially hidden but still visible, were Mike and Tom, and both were holding cell phones pointed directly at her. The realization hit Megan like a punch to the gut. Of course, this was it. How could she have been so naive? This wasn't a real date. It was a setup, a cruel joke. They wanted to film her, probably to laugh. Later, to show the others, to turn her into another office anecdote. Her eyes instantly welled up with tears. She stopped in the middle of the cafe, just a few feet from Ryan's table, completely paralyzed between the urge to run away and the humiliation of doing exactly that while being filmed. Ryan noticed the change immediately. He saw her face pale, saw the tears forming, saw the way her eyes darted toward something behind him. He turned in his chair to follow her gaze, and that's when he saw them. Mike and Tom, with their phones, filming. The realization hit him like a freight train. Everything suddenly made sense. Their insistence that he accept the date, the snickering when they talked about the mysterious woman, the way they offered to set everything up so all he had to do was show up. It wasn't a favor, it was a trap, and both he and this poor woman were the victims. The anger started as a small ember in his chest and quickly turned into a bonfire. Ryan shot up from his chair with such force that it scraped loudly against the floor. People nearby looked over. He didn't care. He walked directly toward where Mike and Tom were standing, their expressions shifting from amusement to concern when they saw the fury on his face. "You guys are jerks," Ryan said, his voice low but loaded with contained rage. "You're pathetic. Did you really think I would participate in this pathetic cruelty?" Mike tried to laugh, but the sound came out strangled. "Dude, chill out. It's just a joke." "A joke?" Ryan felt his face flush. "You set this up to humiliate someone, to humiliate both of us. What kind of people do that?" "Look, we just thought," Tom started, but Ryan cut him off. "Delete those videos. Now. And then get out of my sight before I forget I have a daughter who needs a dad without a criminal record." He waited while, with trembling fingers, they both deleted the recordings. Then, without another word, Ryan turned his back on them and walked over to where Megan was still standing, now discreetly wiping tears with the back of her hand. "Hi," he said softly when he reached her. "You're Megan, right? From the accounting department?" She nodded, unable to form words, still processing what she had just witnessed. "Look, I swear on everything sacred that I didn't know. I would never, ever participate in something like that." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Those two jerks told me this was a real date. I had no idea they planned this." Megan found her voice, though it came out raspy. "Why did you defend me? Why did you get mad at them? You could have just walked away." Ryan looked her directly in the eyes for the first time. They were brown, he realized. Brown and kind, even shining with unshed tears. And in that look, he saw something he recognized intimately. The pain of being judged, of being considered insufficient, of being left behind. "Because what they did is unforgivable," he answered simply. "And because you don't deserve that. Nobody does." He hesitated, then continued. "Look, I completely understand if you want to leave, if you never want to speak to me or anyone from that cursed office again, but..." He took a deep breath, making a decision. "But if you want to stay, if you want to have a real coffee, no cameras, no jokes, no cruelty, I would genuinely love your company." Megan blinked, surprised. You mean that?" "Every word." Ryan gestured to the table where he had been sitting. "Those two morons are gone now. It's just us. And honestly, after 4 years of not dating anyone, after being abandoned by my wife when my daughter was only 2, after hearing everyone judge me for being a single dad, I know exactly what it's like to be judged for things that have nothing to do with who you really are." He offered a small, genuine smile. "So, what do you say? Want to risk having coffee with an anxious single dad who will probably talk way too much about his 6-year-old daughter?" Megan looked at him, at the table near the window, and then back into his eyes. There was sincerity there, vulnerability, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something she hadn't allowed herself to hope for in a long time. "I'd love that," she said, and for the first time that afternoon, she smiled. They sat down at the table near the window, and for a moment, neither of them knew exactly what to say. The waiter approached, and Ryan ordered another coffee while Megan chose a cappuccino and a slice of carrot cake. When they were alone again, the silence stretched. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of pause that comes after a storm, when everyone is still processing what just happened. "Your eyes," Ryan said suddenly, and then blushed. "Sorry, that sounded weird. It's just, you have kind eyes. It was the first thing I noticed." Megan felt her cheeks warm. "Thank you," she murmured, adjusting her glasses. "Usually people just notice that I wear glasses that are too thick." "People are jerks," Ryan replied with conviction. "Trust me, I know. When my wife left. Me, when Jessica simply packed her bags and walked out without even saying goodbye to our daughter, you know what people said? That I must have done something wrong, that a man can't raise a kid alone, that I should have been a better husband, or maybe... He stopped, his voice catching. Or maybe I just wasn't man enough to keep a woman interested. Megan instinctively reached out, lightly touching his fingers across the table. That's awful, and completely unfair. It is. Ryan looked at her hand over his, and something about that simple touch made him want to keep talking. Sophia was 2 years old. She still called for her mom every night for months. She still looked at the door every time she heard footsteps, thinking Jessica was coming back. He swallowed hard. Now she's 6 and barely remembers her mother, and I don't know if that's better or worse. The waiter brought their orders, interrupting the moment. When they were alone again, it was Megan who spoke. "I never had anyone walk out on me," she said softly. "But I know what it's like to be judged. In school, I was always the chubby girl nobody wanted on the volleyball team. In college, I was the nerd who spent weekends studying because I didn't have friends to go out with. And at work," she gave a sad smile. "Well, you saw what happens at work." "Why accounting?" Ryan asked, genuinely curious. "Why numbers?" Megan's face lit up in a way he hadn't expected. "Because numbers are predictable. 2 + 2 will always be 4. An equation will always have the same answer if you follow the same rules. There's no judgment. There's no cruelty. Numbers don't care what you look like or if you're popular. They just are." Ryan smiled. "I never thought of it that way. That's beautiful, actually." "What about you?" Megan took a sip of her cappuccino. "Why it? Why technology?" "Honestly, because after Jessica left, I needed a stable job with flexible hours that would let me pick Sophia up from school and still pay the bills." He shrugged. "But I ended up liking it. Solving problems, finding solutions. It's satisfying, and my boss is understanding about me having a daughter. If Sophia gets sick or has a school presentation, I can adjust my schedule." "She sounds like a lucky girl," Megan commented, "to have such a dedicated dad." Ryan felt a warmth in his chest at the compliment. "She's everything to me. Literally everything. It's funny, before Jessica left, I kind of left most of the parenting to her. I was the dad who worked, who played a little on weekends, but wasn't really present. But when I had to take on everything alone..." He paused, searching for the right words. "It was like waking up. Suddenly I was braiding hair, going to ballet classes, organizing sleepovers, and I found out I loved every second of it." "Sleepovers?" Megan laughed. "That sounds challenging. You have no idea. 6-year-old girls running around the house, screaming, eating candy until they feel sick. It's absolute chaos." Ryan laughed too, and it was a genuine, warm sound. "But Sophia gets so happy. She has this smile that lights up the whole world." "Tell me more about her," Megan asked, realizing she genuinely wanted to know. Ryan didn't need a second invitation. He talked about how Sophia called spaghetti paschetti because she couldn't pronounce it right. About the imaginary tea parties where he had to pretend to drink from tiny cups and eat invisible cakes. About her power outfit, a bizarre combination of a pink tutu, yellow rain boots, and a red superhero cape that she insisted on wearing at least 3 times a week. She says the tutu is for when she needs to be elegant, the boots are for when she has to stomp in puddles or face villains, and the cape is obvious. Every superhero needs a cape. Ryan smiled with such tenderness that Megan felt her heart clench. Once, she wore that to school. The teacher called me, worried, and I said, "If she's happy and comfortable, what's the problem?" "You're an amazing dad," Megan said sincerely. "I try." Ryan grew serious for a moment. "It's hard, you know, being both mom and dad. I worry that she misses a mother figure. I worry that I'm not enough." "You are more than enough," Megan replied firmly. "Believe me." They talked for hours. Megan shared her passion for making elaborate cakes, a skill she had developed watching YouTube videos during lonely nights. She showed him photos on her phone. 3-tiered cakes decorated with sugar flowers, themed cupcakes, artistic tarts that looked like works of art. "Wow," Ryan whistled softly. "That's professional grade. Why don't you open a bakery?" Megan shrugged. "Fear, I guess. Fear of failing. Fear that people won't like it. Fear of a lot of things." "I completely understand," Ryan said. "That's how I felt about dating again. 4 years. 4 years of loneliness because I was afraid to try again, to put myself out there, to maybe go through the same pain again." "And now?" Megan asked softly. "Are you still scared?" Ryan looked at her kind eyes behind the glasses, at the shy smile playing on her lips, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. "Still am," he admitted, "but I think some things are worth the fear." When they finally looked at the clock, it was almost 6 in the evening. 3 hours had passed like minutes. The cafe was busier now, with the Saturday night rush starting. "I should go," Megan said, though her tone suggested it was the last thing she wanted to do. "My sister is waiting. We live together, and she'll start worrying." "Of course." Ryan flagged down the waiter for the check, insisting on paying despite Megan's protests. While they waited, he pulled out his phone. Can I get your number? To set up another date? A real one, I mean. Not that this wasn't real, but, you know." Megan laughed, and the sound was like music. "I'd love that." They exchanged numbers, fingers brushing briefly when Ryan handed her phone back. Outside the cafe, the downtown street was alive with the typical Saturday night buzz. Neon lights, passing cars, people laughing and talking. "Thank you," Megan said suddenly, "for not letting that destroy me, for defending me, for everything." "You don't have to thank me for being a decent human being," Ryan replied. "But you're welcome anyway." They said goodbye with a hesitant but sincere hug, and when Megan walked away into the crowd, Ryan stood still for a long moment, a goofy smile on his face. His phone vibrated. A text from Megan. "Made it home. Thanks again for this afternoon. It was the best I've had in a long time." He typed back, "Me too. Want to grab dinner next week? I know this amazing Italian place. I promise no idiot coworkers this time." The reply came almost instantly. "I'd love that. It's a date." Ryan put his phone away and started walking back toward his apartment, where the babysitter was with Sophia. For the first time in 4 years, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, good things could still happen. But back at the office, the following Monday, something was about to happen that would change everything in ways neither of them could imagine. Monday started like any other for Ryan. He dropped Sophia off at school, kissed her forehead, and promised to pick her up promptly at 4 o'clock. But when he arrived at the office downtown, something was different. There was a strange buzz, whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when he walked past. Ryan went straight to his desk, turned on his computer, and was checking emails when his supervisor, Paul, appeared beside his workstation. "Ryan, Dr. Helen wants to speak with you in her office. Now." Ryan's heart sank. Dr. Helen Costa was the company's director of human resources. She only summoned people to her office when there were serious problems. "Is everything okay?" Ryan asked, already standing up. Paul just shrugged, but there was something in his expression that looked almost sympathetic. Helen's office was on the 12th floor. Ryan rode the elevator up, his hands sweating. Had someone complained about him? Could his confrontation with Mike and Tom have led to retaliation? Helen was a woman in her early 50s, gray hair pulled back in an impeccable bun, reading glasses dangling from a chain around her neck. When Ryan entered, she gestured for him to sit down. "Ryan, thank you for coming so quickly." She interlaced her fingers on the desk. "I wanted to talk to you about the events of last Saturday." Ryan's blood ran cold. How did you know?" Helen swiveled her computer monitor so he could see. It was a video. Not from Mike and Tom's phones. Those had been deleted. This was from another angle, filmed by someone else in the cafe. Ryan saw himself confronting the two colleagues, saw Megan standing paralyzed with tears in her eyes, saw the moment he invited her to sit down. This video was posted on Twitter Saturday night, Helen explained, by the person who filmed it, a cafe customer. She was so moved by your actions that she decided to share it. The video already has over 200,000 views and has been shared thousands of times. Some people identified our company logo on the bags Mike and Tom were carrying. Ryan didn't know what to say. His mouth was dry. You understand this puts the company in a delicate position, Helen continued. Workplace harassment is something we take extremely seriously. What Mike Silva and Tom Rodriguez did to you and Megan Santos is unacceptable. Wait, Ryan interrupted. They're in trouble, not me? Helen looked genuinely surprised. You? Why would you be? Ryan, you were the victim of an attempted public humiliation just like Megan. And more than that, your response was exemplary. You defended a colleague, refused to participate in cruelty, and maintained your dignity. Why would you think you were in trouble? The relief was so intense that Ryan felt his legs tremble. I thought maybe the confrontation was completely justified. Helen leaned back in her chair. Mike and Tom were called in this morning. Both received formal warnings that will remain permanently in their personnel files. They are being transferred to different teams on different floors and have been clearly informed that any similar behavior will result in immediate termination. She paused. I personally wanted to apologize on behalf of the company. No one should have to go through this in the workplace. And I want you to know that if there is any retaliation, any inappropriate comment, or unfair treatment, you must report it immediately. Thank you, Ryan managed to say. Thank you. And Megan? Helen asked gently. How is she? Ryan felt an involuntary smile. She's doing well. We're actually having dinner together this week. Helen smiled too. That's wonderful. Something positive came out of something so negative. Now go. Get back to work. And Ryan, I'm proud of how you handled the situation. When Ryan returned to his desk, he saw Megan waiting near the floor's coffee station. She had been called in by Helen too, he realized. Their eyes met across the open office space, and they both smiled. 3 days later, on Wednesday evening, Ryan was more nervous than he had been for the first meeting. Not because he was afraid to see Megan again, but because this time, Sophia would be with them. The Bella Vita restaurant was a cozy Italian spot in the city, with exposed brick walls, soft lighting, and the divine smell of garlic and basil perfuming the air. Ryan arrived first, with Sophia skipping beside him, her hair in 2 braids that had taken him 20 minutes to manage. Daddy, you said we're meeting a friend of yours? Sophia asked for the 10th time, her brown eyes shining with curiosity. That's right, Princess. Her name is Megan, and she's really nice. But remember what we talked about? You need to be polite and not interrupt the grown-ups all the time. I know, Daddy. Sophia rolled her eyes dramatically, an expression she had learned from her school friends that always made Ryan smile. When Megan arrived, wearing a simple but elegant navy blue dress, Sophia was instantly fascinated. There was something about the way Megan knelt down to her level, how she smiled genuinely, how she asked about the braids that made the normally shy girl open up instantly. You make cakes? Sophia asked with wide eyes when Megan mentioned her hobby. Real cakes? With frosting and everything? I do, Megan replied, pulling out her phone to show some pictures. See this one? It's a 3-tiered cake with sugar flowers. Sophia was mesmerized. Can you make a unicorn cake with all the rainbow colors and glitter? Megan looked at Ryan, who shrugged as if to say, she asked, Not me. Of course I can. If your dad lets me, maybe I can make one for your next birthday. My birthday is in March, Sophia practically screamed. And I'll be 7. Can you really do it? I promise, Megan said, extending her pinky finger. Sophia intertwined her pinky with hers, sealing the pact with the seriousness only a 6-year-old can muster. During dinner, Ryan watched with a mixture of admiration and relief as Megan and Sophia interacted. His daughter, who was usually reserved with strangers, was telling Megan about her ballet classes, about her best friend Julia, about how she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up because she loved dogs. "And is your daddy nice?" Megan asked at one point, with a playful smile. Sophia considered the question seriously. "He's the best daddy in the world. He does braids, even if they're kind of crooked, and he always lets me choose the cartoon we watch, and he never forgets to put my stuffed bunny in my bed before I go to sleep." Ryan felt his heart swell. Megan reached for his hand under the table and squeezed it briefly. When they finished eating, Sophia was yawning. It was almost 9 o'clock, well past her usual bedtime. Ryan paid the check, and they walked out together onto the illuminated street. "Megan," Sophia said, taking her hand as they walked, "are you going to see my daddy again?" Megan looked at Ryan, who was clearly holding his breath. "If he wants to see me again, I'd love that." "I do," Ryan said quickly. "Very much." Sophia jumped. "Good, because I like you. You're nice, and you smell like vanilla." Ryan chuckled. "She's right, you do smell like vanilla." "Body lotion," Megan explained, blushing. "It has vanilla extract." They said goodbye in front of the restaurant. Sophia gave Megan a tight hug, making her promise once more that she would come to her birthday. When they were finally alone in the car, heading home, Sophia spoke from the back seat. "Daddy, I liked Megan. Can she come over more often?" Ryan looked in the rearview mirror at his daughter, who was struggling to keep her eyes open. "You really liked her, didn't you?" "I liked her a lot. She's kind. And she actually listens to me, not like when grown-ups just pretend to listen." Ryan swallowed the lump in his throat. His daughter, at only 6 years old, had just given her approval for something he hadn't even realized he was waiting for permission to feel. That night, after tucking Sophia into bed, Ryan sent a text to Megan. "She adored you, and I do too." The reply came minutes later. "She's amazing, Ryan, and you raised her. That says everything about who you are." And then a second message. "I adore you too." Ryan put his phone away and stared at the ceiling of the dark room, a goofy smile on his face. For the first time since Jessica left him, he allowed himself to imagine a future that included more than just him and Sophia, a future that perhaps included a kind woman who smelled like vanilla and made unicorn cakes. The next 3 months passed like a sweet dream. Ryan and Megan started seeing each other regularly, always including Sophia when possible. They went to the park on Sundays, where Megan pushed Sophia on the swing while Ryan prepared sandwiches for the picnic. They went to the movies to watch animated films, with Sophia sitting between them, sharing popcorn. Megan started coming over for dinner at Ryan's apartment, and slowly her presence became part of their routine. Sophia blossomed with the attention. She showed Megan her drawings, asked for advice on outfits for her dolls, and insisted Megan help her choose books at the library. Ryan watched everything with a mixture of joy and fear. Joy because he saw his daughter finally having a positive female figure in her life. Fear because, if things didn't work out with Megan, it wouldn't just be his heart that broke. But Megan seemed genuinely happy. She laughed more, spoke more openly about her dreams and fears. One night, while Sophia slept and they were on the couch watching a movie, she confessed that she never imagined she could have this feeling of belonging to a family. "I always thought it would just be me and my sister," she said softly. "That no one would want to deal with all my insecurities, my fears, my weird way of being." Ryan pulled her closer. "You're not weird. You're perfect." "I'm not perfect," Megan corrected, but she was smiling. "But with you, I feel like I can just be myself, and that's better than being perfect." In March, Sophia's ballet recital arrived. It was an event she had been practicing for months, a performance of Swan Lake, adapted for children. Sophia was extremely nervous, practicing her steps at home every night, making Ryan watch her routine repeatedly. "What if I fall, Daddy?" she would ask, biting her lip with worry. "Then you get up and keep going," Ryan would answer. "That's what brave people do." On the day of the recital, Ryan invited Megan. She arrived at the small dance school theater with a bouquet of flowers for Sophia and a huge smile. When Sophia saw her in the audience, her entire face lit up. The performance was adorable. The girls, all wearing white tutus and sparkling tiaras, twirled and leaped with the clumsy grace typical of 6-year-olds. Sophia didn't fall, but another girl did, and Sophia helped her up before continuing to dance, earning affectionate laughter from the audience. When it was over, Megan was the one who clapped the loudest. She stood up, applauding with such enthusiasm that others around her started doing the same. Sophia ran off the stage and, completely ignoring Ryan, ran straight to Megan and jumped into her arms. "Did you see? Did you see when I helped Julia?" Sophia spoke breathlessly, still high on the performance adrenaline. "I did. You were amazing, Sophia. So brave and kind." Megan hugged her tightly, and Ryan saw tears in her eyes. That night, after taking an exhausted but happy Sophia home, Ryan and Megan stood on the apartment balcony, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. "She hugged you first," Ryan said softly. "Before me." Megan looked concerned. "Does that bother you?" "No." Ryan smiled, taking her hand. "It makes me happy. It makes me see that you're not just important to me. You're important to her too." 2 weeks later, Sophia's birthday arrived. She was turning 7, and Ryan organized a party in the park near the apartment. There were other kids, parents chatting, unicorn decorations everywhere, and at the center of it all, the cake Megan had promised. Megan had spent 3 days making that cake. She had spent the entire weekend in the kitchen, mixing colors, shaping forms, creating layer after layer. The result was an edible work of art, 4 tiers of rainbow cake covered in white buttercream and decorated with a sugar unicorn on top. The unicorn's mane had all the colors of the rainbow, and there was edible glitter sprinkled all over the cake, making it sparkle under the sunlight. When Megan arrived at the park carrying that creation in a special box, all conversations stopped. The children gathered around, jaws dropped. The adults took photos, but nothing compared to Sophia's reaction. She stood still, looking at the cake, and then looked at Megan with eyes full of tears. "You really made it. You made the unicorn cake. I promised, didn't I?" Megan knelt beside her. "And I always keep my promises." Sophia threw herself into her arms, and that's when she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I love you, Aunt Megan." Megan started crying for real then, tears streaming down her cheeks as she hugged the girl. "I love you too, sweetie. So much." Ryan watched the scene with his heart overflowing. He saw the happiness in his daughter. He saw the love in Megan, and for the first time since Jessica left them, he felt that his family was complete again. Different, yes, but complete. The party was an absolute success. The kids played, ate cake, until they had stomach aches, and Sophia didn't stop talking about how she had the best party and the best cake in the whole world. When it started getting dark and the guests left, only Ryan, Megan, and Sophia remained, sitting on a blanket on the grass. "This was the best birthday of my life," Sophia declared, lying between them, looking up at the first stars beginning to appear in the sky. "Thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Aunt Megan." Later, after tucking Sophia into bed, Ryan and Megan were in the living room. There was something in the air, a tension that wasn't uncomfortable, but significant. "Ryan," Megan began, nervously fidgeting with her hands. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course. Anything." "Sophia asked me a question yesterday, when you went to get coffee and we were setting up the decorations." Megan took a deep breath. "She asked me if I was going to stay. With you guys. Forever." Ryan's heart stopped. "And what did you say?" "I said I hoped so. Because I love you both." Megan finally looked at him. "I know it might be too soon to say this. I know we've only been together a few months. But Ryan, I've never felt anything like this before. I wake up thinking about you too. I go to sleep smiling because I know I'll see you again. When Sophia hugs me, my heart gets so full it feels like it's going to burst. And when you look at me that way..." Ryan didn't let her finish. He pulled her into a kiss, deep and full of all the emotions he was feeling. When they finally separated, both were breathless. "I love you too," Ryan said, resting his forehead against hers. "I've been falling for you since that first day in the cafe when you stood there vulnerable and scared, and still decided to stay, decided to give me a chance." "You gave me the chance," Megan corrected. "You saw me, truly saw me. No one had ever done that before." They held each other for a long time, the comfortable silence enveloping them. Through the slightly ajar door of Sophia's room, they could hear her soft snoring, exhausted from the party. "She called you aunt today," Ryan murmured. "But you know you're much more than that to her, right? You're—" "I know," Megan interrupted gently. "And to me, she feels like my daughter. I never thought I'd have this, Ryan. A family. A place where I belong." "You will always belong here," Ryan promised. "Always." That night, when Megan finally went home, Ryan stayed awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, a goofy smile on his face. Tomorrow, he decided, he would start planning something special. Because if Megan was part of their lives now, if she and Sophia were already inseparable, then maybe it was time to make official what everyone already knew in their hearts. Maybe it was time for a new promise, one that would last forever. The months that followed were the happiest Ryan could remember. Megan became an integral part of their lives, not just as a girlfriend, but as family. She had her own drawer in the apartment, her favorite side of the couch, her special mug for weekend breakfasts. Sophia started calling her bonus mom, a term she had invented after watching a cartoon about non-traditional families. "Because you're not my real mom," Sophia explained with the simple logic of a 7-year-old. "But you're a bonus, like when you get extra points in a game," Megan cried when she heard that. And Ryan had to explain to Sophia that they were happy tears, not sad ones. The girl hugged Megan and said, "Don't cry, bonus mom. You're always going to be my favorite bonus." Now, sitting in the same cafe where everything had begun, exactly 1 year later, Ryan could barely believe how much their lives had changed. It was Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock on the dot, and he watched Megan order the same cappuccino and carrot cake she had ordered on that first date. "Do you remember?" Megan asked, smiling as the waiter walked away. "Exactly 1 year ago, I was walking through that door, terrified, about to be humiliated. And I was sitting here too nervous to breathe right, having no idea I was about to meet the love of my life." Ryan took her hand across the table. "You know what's funny? Mike and Tom tried to destroy us. They wanted to hurt us in the worst possible way, but all they managed to do was bring us together." Sarah squeezed his fingers. "Sometimes I think about them, you know? I wonder if they ever learned anything. Helen told me that Mark quit a few months ago, went to work for another company. Tom is still there, but he keeps his distance from everyone. I guess the public shaming was enough to make him rethink his attitude." Ryan shrugged. "But honestly, I don't spend much time thinking about them. I'd rather use my energy thinking about you, and Chloe, and us." The waiter brought their orders. As Sarah stirred sugar into her cappuccino, Ryan watched her. She was more confident now, happier. She no longer wore such conservative clothes to work, and there was a sparkle in her eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. Love, Ryan realized, had the power to transform people. "Ryan," Sarah said suddenly, putting down her spoon, "can I ask you a serious question?" He felt his heart speed up. "Of course. Have you thought about the future? Our future?" She bit her lip, nervous. "I know we have Chloe, and she is absolutely the priority, but sometimes I wonder if you see this, us, going somewhere specific, or if—" Ryan couldn't let her finish. The words he had been saving for weeks, rehearsing in his mind every night before falling asleep, simply tumbled out. "I want to marry you." Sarah blinked, frozen. "What?" "I want to marry you," Ryan repeated, his voice firmer now. "I know I don't have a ring right now. I know this is completely spontaneous, and I probably should have planned something more romantic. But Sarah, I can't wait another second without you knowing. I love you. Chloe loves you. You are already part of us, but I want to make it official. I want to wake up every day knowing you are my wife. I want Chloe to call you mom without any qualifiers. I want to build a life with you, not just share the one I already have. Tears streamed freely down Sarah's face now. Ryan, you don't have to answer right now, he rushed to say. If you need time to think, I completely understand. I know this is huge. I know that. Yes, Sarah interrupted him, laughing through her tears. Yes, of course I want to marry you. Ryan stood up so fast he nearly knocked over his chair. He rounded the table and pulled her into a tight hug, kissing her under the applause of other coffee shop patrons who had witnessed the spontaneous proposal. I love you so much, Sarah whispered in his ear. It hurts sometimes. I know, Ryan replied. I know exactly how that feels. When they finally separated, both laughing and wiping away tears, Ryan grabbed his phone. We have to tell Chloe. She is going to freak out. Sarah looked at the clock. She's at Julie's sleepover, right? Can we call? Ryan was already dialing. Julie's mom answered, sounding amused by the urgent request to speak to Chloe. Minutes later, his daughter's high-pitched voice filled the phone. Daddy, is everything okay? Did something happen? Ryan put it on speakerphone and set the cell phone on the table. Everything is more than okay, Princess. Sarah is here with me. We have some news for you. News? What news? Chloe was clearly curious. They could hear Julie in the background asking what was going on. Sarah leaned closer to the phone, her hand intertwined with Ryan's. Chloe, sweetie, your daddy asked me to marry him, and I said yes. There was a second of absolute silence. Then, a scream so loud Ryan had to pull the phone away from his ear. Seriously? For real? You guys are getting married? The bonus mom is going to be my real mom? Ryan and Sarah laughed, both with tears in their eyes again. It's for real, Chloe. Sarah is going to be your stepmom. Well, your mom, if you want to call her that. I do! I really do! Chloe was clearly jumping up and down. They could hear Julie and the other girls screaming too, caught up in the excitement of the moment. Can I tell everyone, please? You can tell anyone you want, Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. Will there be a dress? Will there be cake? Can I be the flower? Girl? The questions came in a torrent. Yes to everything, Ryan promised. But now you need to get back to the party, okay? Tomorrow we'll talk about all the details. Okay, Daddy, I love you. I love you, bonus mom. I mean, mom, real mom. And with that, Chloe hung up, leaving Ryan and Sarah alone again in the buzz of the coffee shop. They sat in silence for a moment, absorbing what had just happened. A year ago, they were two lonely, hurt people, unfairly judged by the world. And now, they were engaged. They were building a family. You know what's incredible? Sarah said eventually. A year ago, when I walked into that coffee shop, I thought it was the end of everything. I thought it would be the final humiliation, the definitive proof that I didn't deserve love. But it was the exact opposite. It was the beginning. Ryan nodded. Mark and Tom, with their worst intentions, ended up giving me the greatest gift of my life. They revealed something I was about to lose, that there is kindness in the world, that the right people will truly see you, that love can spring up from the most unlikely places, and that the choice to see someone, truly see them, is where everything begins, Sarah completed. You saw me, Ryan. When I was standing there, vulnerable and hurt, you saw me, and you chose to stay. And you saw me too, Ryan replied. You saw a scared single dad full of insecurities, and you chose not just to accept Chloe, but to love her as your own. Sarah wiped away another tear. How could I not love her? She's extraordinary. Both of you are. They finished their coffee talking about the wedding. Nothing too elaborate, they decided. Something small, intimate, focused on what truly mattered. The commitment they were making to each other and to Chloe. Maybe a park, Sarah suggested. Or a small chapel, Ryan pondered. But wherever it was, it would be perfect, because they would be together. When they finally left the coffee shop, the busy avenue was bathed in the golden sun of the late afternoon. Ryan stopped for a moment, looking at the spot where everything had begun. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Sarah asked, confused. "For staying, for giving me a chance, for choosing to believe that something good could come out of that horrible moment." He pulled her into a hug. "You changed my life, Sarah. Our life. We changed each other's lives," Sarah corrected. "And now we'll change together. Forever." As they walked hand in hand down the busy avenue, two survivors of cruelty who found beauty in each other, Ryan knew this was just another page in a much bigger story. A story about family, about love, about how the darkest intentions can, inadvertently, illuminate the brightest paths. And tomorrow, when they picked up Chloe from Julie's house, when she jumped into their arms overflowing with excitement, when the three of them hugged together, laughing and planning the future, that story would continue. Because the best stories don't end. They just transform, grow, and become even more beautiful. 6 months later, on a clear October morning, the major city park was absolutely perfect. The sun filtered through the trees, creating patterns of light and shadow on the green lawn where white chairs had been arranged in a semicircle. There weren't many chairs, only 50 for their closest friends and family. Because this wedding wasn't about extravagance, it was about love. Ryan stood in front of the small arch, decorated with white and lilac flowers, adjusting his tie for the 1,000th time. Paul, his former supervisor who had become a close friend, stood beside him as the best man. "You nervous?" Paul asked with a smile. "Terrified," Ryan admitted, "but in the best possible way." On the other side of the park, in a tent improvised as a dressing room, Sarah was finishing getting ready. Her dress was simple but elegant, white and flowing, with lace sleeves that covered her arms. She had chosen to wear her hair down, with small flowers woven into her brown waves. Her sister, Caroline, stood beside her, adjusting the veil. "You look beautiful," Caroline said, her eyes welling up. "I've never seen you this happy." "I've never been this happy," Sarah replied, looking at her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back was unrecognizable compared to the one who had walked into the Spring Cafe a year and a half ago. Her eyes shone with joy, her smile was wide and genuine. She had found her place in the world. The tent door opened and Chloe burst in like a hurricane of excitement. She wore a light pink flower girl dress with a floral crown on her head. And underneath the dress, exactly as she had insisted, was a pair of pink sneakers with lights that flashed when she walked. "Just in case we need to run," she had explained when Sarah asked about the unusual footwear choice. "You never know, right?" "You look so pretty, Mom." Chloe jumped up on Sarah, nearly knocking off the floral crown. "Daddy is going to cry when he sees you, I bet." Sarah laughed, hugging her almost daughter. "You think so?" "Definitely. He even cried yesterday when he was practicing his vows in the shower. I heard him." Caroline and Sarah exchanged an amused look. "Your daddy is very sensitive," Sarah said, kissing the top of Chloe's head. "I know. That's why I love him. And you." Chloe looked up with her serious brown eyes. "You know you're going to be my mom forever now, right? Not bonus mom. Just mom." "I know," Sarah whispered, feeling tears threaten to smudge the makeup Caroline had so carefully applied. "And I promise I'll be the best mom I can be." "You already are," Chloe declared with the absolute certainty of a child. "Now let's go, or Daddy will. Think you ran away?" The music began to play, a soft instrumental version of a song Sarah and Ryan had chosen together. Chloe walked out first, tossing rose petals with dramatic enthusiasm, some of them ending up in the guest's hair, drawing affectionate laughter. When she reached the front, she went straight to Ryan and whispered something in his ear that made him smile. Then Sarah appeared, walking slowly down the makeshift aisle, her sister beside her. When Ryan saw her, his eyes instantly filled with tears. Chloe was right. He was crying, and he didn't care one bit. She was absolutely stunning. But more than that, she was his. Finally, officially, forever his. When Sarah reached the floral arch, Caroline kissed her cheek and went to sit down. Ryan extended his hand, and Sarah took it. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they were made for it. The ceremony was short but moving. The officiant, a friend of Paul's, spoke about love overcoming adversity, about families formed not by blood, but by choice, about the courage to believe in happy endings even after disappointments. When it was time for the vows, Ryan went first. He took a deep breath, looking at Sarah with so much love that several people in the audience started crying too. Sarah, a year and a half ago, I was sitting in a coffee shop, nervous and scared, having no idea I was about to meet the person who would change my life forever. You walked through that door, and I saw your vulnerability, your strength, your kindness, and then something terrible almost happened. But you stayed. You chose to stay. You chose to give me a chance. You chose to believe that something good could be born from something bad. And you were right. He paused, wiping away a tear. You didn't just give me love. You gave Chloe a mother. You gave us a complete family. And today, I promise I will spend every day of my life showing you that you made the right choice, that you deserve all the love in the world, that you are seen, valued, and absolutely essential to me and to our daughter. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Chloe was clinging to Paul's leg, crying happy tears. Sarah wiped her own tears before starting. Ryan, when I was a kid, I thought love was something that happened to other people. Pretty people, popular people, people who fit in. I never imagined it would be for me. And then you saw me. You truly saw me. Not my appearance, not my insecurities, but who I am inside. And you chose me anyway. Her voice trembled. You and Chloe taught me that family isn't about blood or expectations. It's about choosing every day to love and be loved. It's about tight hugs, unicorn cakes, imaginary tea parties, and sneakers under party dresses. It's about building a home where everyone belongs. And today I promise to be your partner, your friend, your wife, and the mother of our Chloe for the rest of my life. The officiant asked for the rings, and Chloe jumped forward, pulling 2 simple gold bands from the secret pocket of her dress. Ryan and Sarah exchanged them, their fingers trembling slightly with emotion. By the powers vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Ryan wasted no time. He pulled Sarah into a deep kiss full of promises under the joyful applause and cheers of the guests. When they separated, Chloe was between them, jumping and shouting. We're a real family now, a real family. The reception was held in a covered area of the park, with simple tables decorated with wildflowers and candles. There was a delicious buffet, live music, and a 3-tiered cake that Sarah had insisted on baking herself, despite protests that the bride shouldn't make her own wedding cake. During dinner, it was time for the toasts. Paul went first, telling funny stories about Ryan at the office and how much he had changed since meeting Sarah. Caroline spoke about how her sister had blossomed, finally finding the happiness she had always deserved. Then Ryan stood up, holding his glass. The room fell silent. I wanted to say a few words, he began. Our love story started in an unusual way. 2 people tried to humiliate us, hurt us, make us feel small, but they failed spectacularly because they revealed something important, that when you choose kindness over cruelty, when you choose to see the humanity in another person, when you choose love over fear, magical things can happen. He looked at Sarah. So thank you, Mark and Tom, wherever you are. Thank you for being so cruel that you forced me to be kind. Thank you for inadvertently showing me the most incredible woman in the world. You tried to destroy us and ended up giving us the greatest gift possible. The audience laughed and applauded. Sarah was crying again, but smiling. And to my wife, Ryan continued, his voice softening. Thank you for staying, for believing, for loving not just me, but our daughter. You turned our house into a home, and I will love you every day of my life. He sat down to enthusiastic applause. But then, to everyone's surprise, Chloe stood up, dragging a chair over, so she could reach the microphone. "I want to talk too," she announced, her high voice echoing through the sound system. Ryan tried to intervene, but Sarah held his arm. "Let her talk." Chloe cleared her throat dramatically. "I'm 7.5 now. And I know that's not super old, but I know some important things. I know my daddy is the best daddy in the whole world. He does braids even when they're crooked. He never forgets my stuffed bunny. And he always lets me pick the movie." The audience was quiet, completely captivated. "And now I have Sarah. My mom. And she is the best bonus mom turned real mom in the whole world. She makes unicorn cakes. She comes to my recitals and claps louder than everyone else. She really listens to me, not like when grown-ups just pretend to listen. And she smells like vanilla, which is the best smell." Ryan and Sarah were both crying now, as were half the guests. "Before, it was just me and Daddy, and we were happy, but there was a hole, like when you lose a puzzle piece. But now Sarah filled the hole, and now we are a complete family. A real complete family." Chloe looked directly at Sarah. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for being my mom. You're the best." She dropped the microphone and jumped off the chair straight into Sarah's arms, who caught her and held her tight, sobbing. Ryan joined the embrace, wrapping his 2 girls in his arms. The photo the photographer took in that moment would be their favorite forever. Not the kiss at the altar, not the first dance, but this one. The 3 of them hugging, crying happy tears, completely lost in their own world of love. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of dancing, laughter, and joy. Chloe danced with everyone, her light-up sneakers flashing frantically. Sarah and Ryan had their first dance as husband and wife, moving slowly as the music played, oblivious to everyone around them. When the party finally ended and the guests left, the 3 of them sat on the park lawn, looking up at the stars beginning to appear in the city sky. "That was the best day of my life," Chloe declared, lying between her parents. "Mine too," Sarah agreed. "And mine," Ryan finished, taking the hands of the 2 women he loved. "Definitely mine too." And there, under the stars, a family that was formed not by chance but by choice, not by tradition but by love, not by perfection but by acceptance, began its new chapter. A story that had started with cruelty and fear, but had transformed into kindness and hope. A story that proved that sometimes the darkest intentions can, inadvertently, illuminate the brightest paths. A story about healing, about second chances, and about how true love isn't found but built, brick by brick, hug by hug, choice by choice. A story about a family, their family. End of story. If the journey of Ryan, Sarah, and Chloe touched your heart as much as it touched ours in telling it, know that we have many more emotional stories waiting for you. Stories about love overcoming obstacles, about families forming in unexpected ways, about the courage to start over even after pain. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button to support more narratives like this, and tell us in the comments. Do you believe in second chances at love? What part of Ryan and Sarah's story resonated with you the most? Share with us, because every comment inspires us to bring more stories that warm the heart and renew faith in human kindness. Until the next story, and remember, true love is the one that chooses to stay, even when it would be easier to walk away.